welcome to CHGO Red Stars Podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top rated sportsbook. Download the app, use promo code CHGO when you sign up. A lot of good stuff there if you're of the betting mindset. I know I'm betting on my good friend, homie and colleague Claire Watkins having some things to say today because we're back at it. Welcome back, everybody. Just a quick reminder, if you're joining us to chat about Chicago Red Stars, we do these kind of bi-weekly now. So there's a lot of things for us to get through whenever we link back up to talk about all things Red Stars. And an exciting thing for us is, well, yes, we definitely still have some L's to recap. Got Dub in there that we're gonna get to talk about. But good to see you again, bud. How you doing? Last time we saw each other was at a Sky game. Actually,
I know we got to hang out. We got to hang out this weekend. Go see the Chicago Sky. Yeah, we're jinxes. We saw their one loss so far, but yeah, kind of an interesting couple of weeks for the Red Stars, right? Like some lows,
some real low
struggles,
lows,
some
yeah,
some highs. But yeah, it feels like we've just kind of gone through every single emotion possible so far.
I mean, it wouldn't be we wouldn't be who we are if we weren't riding the wave of a roller coaster of emotions whenever we cover the Chicago Red Stars. But we're back, baby. And of course we're gonna save the good stuff for last, actually, because you should do it. I think you should do it that way. Last we left everyone, we had to recap some Red Stars news, like the arrival of Sandra Stark, the departure of GM Shalom Nicky. We had to recap some losing streaks. And honestly, since we last left you, there's been some losses, some additional losses along the way for us to go ahead and talk about. Chicago Red Stars, when it comes to the regular season, not a great outlook right now. So we're doing this after the league has wrapped up week 9. Right. So we're about 2-ish games away from the halfway point for a lot of teams here, the Red Stars included. And when you are getting to this point, it just sort of feels like some things the dots should be connected at this point. And we should be able to take a look and see, like, this is the Red Stars and this is what they're presenting us, or this is team A and this is team B and this is, their identity and what they're rolling out with. And for Chicago, it's been a little bit of a struggle for sure, especially in some of the instances where we've had to cover losses in person and chat with some of the players about it, and hearing from them saying it's definitely been a tough season to date. And as you look at like the games in front of you, you wonder, okay, like where can this team try to steal some points? And last we left, we were looking at racing Louisville. They had another Challenge Cup game that they were going to kick off. And then we knew on the horizon they had Portland Thorns. So questionable things. We were like, there's no way the Chicago Red Stars will lose 3-0 to Portland again, right? Wrong. Turns out anything's possible in the NWSL, and that includes another 3-0 loss in 2023. Where they had a big loss before to them, and Portland Thorns 4-0. Tough stuff. I'm not gonna lie, man. Some of the body language out of these games was rough. It's just, you could just sort of see like those type of blowout losses are like the losses that like you could just sort of see kind of like maybe weigh down on a player.
Yeah, I think there's a couple really troubling things that I'm not even really sure got resolved against Orlando, but they had some bounces go their way. I think what to say? The Red Stars are successfully possessing a little bit more. They're holding onto the ball a little bit more. But it is still just those turnover rates that turn into goals against and sort of a lack of reaction time. And this is kind of an interesting lead wide, to be honest, in the context of defenses not really stepping well. It's not sort of just a Red Stars problem. It seems like every team has had moments where they're a little slow to step, or they have a turnover and they don't recover, just like leaky defensive moments. And I think that we saw that in these two games. I mean, obviously it's 7 goals against in in 2 games. Like what else can you say? And then I think the other really concerning thing, and this did not really improve against Orlando, is just there's nothing happening in the attack. The attack is completely stagnant. They had 0 shots on goal against Portland. I think they had 2 against Louisville. Um, so they're just constantly defending. They're holding on to the ball as best they can to try to play out the back, but with no real attacking threat, it's just way too easy for other teams to plan for the Red Stars right now.
I think just to sort of like rehash what we were chatting about on that previous episode, it was like, is the season far gone enough to this point where it's just like go out there and just try some stuff, like just try some stuff, because it's gotten, there have been certain stretches in some of these really tough losses that we've seen where it's like, well, here's some pretty obvious things. It's pretty obvious that like the midfielders that they were trying to stick together through some of these games, it's evident that like they have never played together
Right.
before, and it's tough for them to either communicate or get familiar with each other's movements, and we have seen how that has sort of essentially affected the back line. We even saw a game, I forget which game, I think maybe it was that Gotham game at one point, where we noticed the switch in Milazzo and Kruger, and asking Petroselli about that after a game and saying like, they're pretty good players and we allow them to do that in the game if they feel like that's a thing they should do. And we're just kind of like, well, that's interesting. And then to sort of have this roll over into another loss against Racing Louisville and then another loss against Portland is really kind of tough. And I think that game against Racing in particular, where these weird common threads or trends in Red Stars games like really haunted them again in that one. I mean, we're talking not just one, but like 2 penalty kicks that the Red Stars conceded in a game against Louisville. And at that point, it's like it was like this kind of cruel joke where we're both just kind of like, they got to be averaging like conceding a penalty per game at this point. It's like, who's got the data, like who's got the stat, who's got the number, because it's been constant for the club this season. And I can, at this point, maybe it's the cruel joke where you're just like, oh, there it is, there's the penalty that they went to VAR to review and confirm it, and then it's like a second one and you're like, come on, man, there's no way, right? Like this, it got to a point where it wasn't so much the joke part dropped off. It wasn't just like a cruel joke. It just kind of felt cruel from the soccer gods.
Yeah, and we're just not really seeing the team rotate very much. I mean, I think you look at the 2 losses, you saw what went wrong against Louisville, right? 2 penalties against. Poor Alyssa Nair. I think that first goal was technically an own goal because it hit her after hitting the post. You just have no chance to grab onto a game. I mean, I think this, again, I do think it ties from what's happening up top. It's about the entire team and the entire approach when you're just defending constantly over and over again, and you're trying to pass out of the back and you're trying to control pace and you're trying to move the ball forward, but you're not really succeeding in turning that into dangerous chances. It just means that the other team doesn't have to account for space as much, so they can start putting numbers forward. And it's those kinds of waves of attack that I think, I mean, obviously that's what gives up penalties. So I think that Louisville game, I think, was tricky, and it did seem like, again, just more mental mistakes and just not a lot happening. And then the Portland game, the lack of rotation, I thought was also interesting. We've talked a lot about what are like the tools, right, to sort of shake a team out of a funk like this one. And rotation is certainly one of them. Though obviously I think in terms of like the team's depth, maybe you feel like you don't have the people to be able to do that, especially in the back line. Amanda Kowalski has been off the injury report and we haven't really seen her. And I thought to myself, looking at that Portland lineup, I was like, I think that this is, we're looking at a definition of insanity thing here, where we keep running the same stuff out and expecting something different to happen. And I just think that I feel for the team, because I just don't think that there was a lot of adjusting going on. Though again, like I said, I'm not a coach. Like I'm very, like, I don't know exactly what those tools are that could be, but it just seems like there should be something happening, right?
No, I feel that 100%. I think coming out of that Louisville game, like that is, look, it sucks to lose, right? I think if you're a competitor, if you're a pro athlete and you lose, you're like, this sucks. You're built a specific kind of way that if you lose, it feels bad. And I think like the body language like coming out of that racing game was different from a little bit of the body language that we saw out of the loss against Portland. I think you're looking across the league and you're looking at the state of other teams as well, and maybe you're looking at the calendar and say, here's a match where we could pick up some points. And I don't doubt that Chicago and its coaching staff maybe took a look at that and say, hey, here's a team that we're not unfamiliar with. Let's work on this. Let's try to execute this and walk out with a result. And it just like everything absolutely got flipped on its head with, again, not just one, but two penalty kicks. And you just saw like it just wasn't great body language afterward. It was just kind of like a little bit of a Grand Theft Auto, oh shit, here we go again kind of energy. It was like, come on. And so I think like if you take a look at a game like that, and on top of all of these other losses that Chicago has had to struggle with throughout the beginning of the season, you think, all right, this is a team that maybe I'm not going to place a bet on. But that's called a transition, baby. If you're a betting kind of person, you should probably do that with DraftKings, and you maybe will do that with the NBA because I don't know if you heard, but they got the playoffs going on.
True.
And now there's going to be the NBA Finals. It's going to be Miami Heat. It's going to be going up against Denver Nuggets. Maybe you want to place a bet. Maybe you download DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. New customers can place a $5 bet and score $200 in bonus bets instantly. Plus, all customers can take a shot at bigger payouts with DraftKings stepped up some of the same game parlays. Download DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code CHGO. New customers can place a $5 bet and you can get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's code CHGO only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Claire, on the road against Portland, even though it was like a massive L, I was talking about body language out of racing. Body language out of this one was a little different. Body language for me was just kind of like, well, you know what? It's Portland, man. It's the Thorns. There was a real strong possibility we were going to go on the road and get this L, and guess what? We caught it. And it just was like, it was just a different day at the office. And while it's like a blowout loss, I think, it kind of, for me, it was kind of like, what are you going to do? Hand me a blowout loss and I'm going to go feel bad about it? I've had several of those already at this point in the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at the sure. Yeah, you can't let yourself get too down. Yeah, I mean, it could have been worse. I mean, I think I don't mean that as an insult. I kind of mean it as like a talk about the body language change. I mean, I think that we saw those 3 early goals and we thought, oh, this could be a 6-goal game. The fact that they only allowed 1, yeah, just rough stuff. The XG chances, you can see they got a couple of things at the very end, sort of when the game was already over. But like I said, no shots on goal. So they got into some areas where they can maybe make a dangerous shot, dangerous pass, but nothing that turned into something on goal. And then, yeah, they had a couple worldies scored against them. And if you're getting scored on by Kelly Hubley in like the 4th minute, you're in trouble.
That's again tough way to start.
Tough way to start. But yeah, I mean, I think that they tightened things up. They started really defending behind the ball. They only let 1 in the second half, and I think that you kind of have to take that and package it into like, okay, not the worst result we've ever had in Portland. We know the things that we need to work on, and we'll bring it home next week.
Yeah, I think. Do you ever feel like, I hate to like get like collegiate about things, but like, is there ever a moment where like you get dunked on by a fellow like DePaul Blue Demon and you're like, damn, that one kind of stings a little bit?
Yeah, a local. Yeah, right. Like, come on, man.
And you're like, damn, Kelly, whatever. Yeah. I thought you were all about like Chi-Town, my town. Like, what up? Like,
yeah,
that was definitely a tough way to start off the game. Again, another early like goal to concede, opening 10 minutes, dead ball situation. That one coming off of a set.
Well, even she was shocked. She was very surprised by that goal.
Yeah, we're talking about body language, like for real. Like, it was like, oh yeah, it just happened. Yeah, I think like if the last one we did an episode on the Red Stars, and then maybe you ask us to project like, okay, like where are some like areas where Chicago could pick up results? I don't know if we would have like chose this game as one of those games. I also don't know if I would have chosen this game to be another blowout loss for this team, because the heavy score lines, unfortunately, is one of those common trends for the team this year. And yeah, I did have a worry. Not going to front, that coming off of essentially 2 weeks where you concede 7 goals, going up against a team in Orlando who's looks like one of those teams that they're like, okay, we're starting to figure things out as we're approaching this midway point of the season. Players are buying in. They're going out there and executing the tactics presented to them by their coaching staff. Someone like Marta is like gearing up for a World Cup. Like the things that you want, the momentum that you want to start happening at this current phase of the season is starting to happen. And it did leave me a little bit worried. I was like, gosh, I was like, I know Orlando can definitely come in here into Bridgeview and definitely hand Chicago a loss. They've done it before. We've seen it in person. And if they're coming in with that momentum, coming off of some results of their own, like why wouldn't we anticipate that maybe Chicago have another tough day at the office? And I wouldn't say that it was totally smooth sailing in this game, but they did get a win, which was delicious.
Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned the World Cup gear up, right? And I think that
Yep.
that is a particularly relevant point, right? Which is, everyone's kind of on their own trajectory. You obviously have team goals, and I think, have everyone balancing those team goals with individual, well, I don't know the right word, like form planning of just trying to make sure that you're peaking at the right time. And I think we've
Yep.
seen that with Marta. Adriana's been very, very good for Orlando.
Yeah.
And they've started to get a little bit of momentum. This was their first loss, I think, in May, right? Or at
Yep.
least in the regular season. And so same with Alyssa Nair. Alyssa Nair, as we haven't shied away from it. She's had a tough beginning of the season, and part of that is just getting used to some of the defensive struggles that the Red Stars have had. Some of it's been a little bit of bad luck. Some of it you kind of wonder is sort of that emotional roller coaster. And this was the first game, I think. Actually, you know what? That 4-0 loss in Portland, she was not bad. In the second half, especially.
I was going to say,
Not
what's
bad.
crazy?
Yeah.
What's crazy about a 4-0 loss?
Yeah.
Is that it actually could have been a 7-0.
Yeah, right.
And that is a little bit crazy to think about.
Yeah, but she actually did not have a terrible game in that Portland game, especially in the second half. And I think she carried that momentum into this game. But yeah, I mean, it's difficult. It's great. I'm so glad, I'm sure it felt like a breath of fresh air to get the win. Those are the kind of wins that you need to start putting the building blocks together for a season that feels like you're making progress. They're no longer bottom of the table because they have 2 wins and Kansas City only has 1. It's good. I think there's a lot of positives to take out from this game, but you saw some of the same sort of troubling issues, right? Which is very little happening in the attack. We had the attack itself was just a beautiful, the goal was just a beautifully placed ball by Casey Kruger, who is also, I think, and I think I said this on Twitter last week, regardless of the defensive struggles, I think that her personal standard has been quite high this whole season. Out of everyone in the back line, I feel like she's the one who looks the most like herself. And she sends this beautiful ball in, as we know she can. And Yuki Nagasato gets on the end of it, and then they defend for another 60 minutes. And Nair has to do like crazy double saves, and she breaks the saves record and all of that sort of stuff. But I think those are the kinds of things that for a fan of this team, this is what you need to grab onto, because these are the kind of performances that you can be like, well, maybe May was a wash, but we got the Alyssa Nair like brick wall game, and that's pretty sweet.
The little things, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what you look for in this game. Going through, I know you and I are both going through like end of the month type of move. So unfortunately we weren't able to catch this one live, but watching it in my pile of boxes, definitely was distracting, because again, the energy just felt a different kind of way.
They also did make some interesting adjustments with the
Yes.
lineup as well. I think there were some tweaks that, again, I would have loved to have seen in Portland, though again, I also understand why maybe that's not the right environment to try that out for the first time. But yeah, this felt a little bit fresher. It just felt a little bit like a slight little reset that gave at least the players who have carried a lot of heavy minutes maybe a little bit extra energy.
Yeah, I liked I liked seeing Yuki back up top. I mean, are we going to start seeing more consistent minutes, from Ava Cook. This is the player that's kind of had to work her way into form a little bit, I
Right.
think, this season, with a ton of players who have carried knocks out of preseason into the regular season at this point. But kind of getting a look at just Recaro and Bianchi specifically, I thought was interesting. And I think Milazzo, the center back, isn't new,
Yeah.
for us at this point. But I think for this season, in terms of the way they lined up, it was,
Well,
but
and obviously, like, it was that tweak that gave Kruger the ability to push forward a little
yeah.
bit more and be an attacking generator, right? So that switch, I think, was directly responsible for that goal.
Yeah, it's a little, again, wild to think. 'Cause I know you and I have been keeping an eye on Kruger's return, kind of post pregnancy, and how she's kind of definitely looked very comfortable back on the pitch, but kind of having these the early weeks that they had, in which, like, they were very clearly like, we're gonna still roll out with this three back that we had last season, and go forward and do that. You could see, like, even at moments where she was trying to get high or get central, where all of this stuff could get exposed, and it just some really tough moments there, for the Red Stars to try to battle against, with all this space that they were kind of leaving exposed. But maybe that in a game like this kind of helps out, when you kind of shift those things around, a little bit. But it's funny to look at the final numbers and some of this stuff, because you talk about having to, like, withstand some stuff, man. Because not only, look, the goal is beautiful, right? We love it.
Yeah.
It was, the elation was everywhere. It was just not for the players. I was off the roof, like, blew the roof off of the house. I was like, yes, like, here we go. Like, you love to see the link up between Kruger and Nagasato. It's been too long, quite literally. They've had some bangers before in the past. It was great to see it come back to life, this version in 2023. But it also is a goal that comes in the 22nd minute of this game, and it's a goal that absolutely gets Orlando fired the
Yeah.
hell up. And talk about literally going to war. Or, I mean, just looking at the final numbers in this: 2 total shots for Chicago Red Stars in this game, two attempts on target, one obviously in the back of the net from Yuki, compared to Orlando with 19 total shots and 6 attempts on target. It's just like, God, like, what's going on here? But the crosses in this game, dude,
Yeah.
the 29 crosses by the Pride to 4 compared to Chicago, I was like, man, Alyssa Nair is really, really saving some things.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Pride were moving the ball really well.
Look at
It
this
was
pass network. It's
that was
delightful.
not the issue. Yep.
That's delightful. Yeah, no, good. I mean, look, good shape. I think if you're taking a look at the passing network, shout out to Ariel, who always provides these after match weeks in NWSL. You could see some nice red bubbles there, dark orange ones for Orlando, some different shades for Chicago. But again, we're running down the numbers and that reason. But I think a really fun, my most favorite graphic from Ariel this week isn't so much the pass network, but it was definitely the XG, because Chicago's line practically looks invisible.
Well, there we go. Yeah. So they get the one
Flat.
shot. They get one shot, and then it flatlines for the rest
Jeez.
of the game,
Oh, goodness.
as
Goodness.
opposed to Orlando, which had almost 2.5 XG.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like, God. And I think, like, look, I think if you're Chicago, like, obviously you get a win, and that is automatically gonna bump up your morale and give you some motivation to carry into the following week. But I also think that's the same could be said for Orlando, because I just
Right.
don't, there's obviously things within this game that they did that they're going to be like, you know what, there's plenty here for us to build off of, just not the dub.
Them not even getting an equalizer is wild to me.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was going to come a number of times.
Yeah.
But Alyssa Nair had
said
other
no.
plans. Look,
said no.
it's when you feel good, it leads to led to a dub, and not to get too, like we said, it's important not to get too low. But I think maybe it's important not to get too high either. But if you are inspired and motivated by the recent win with Chicago Red Stars against Orlando Pride, maybe you're like, you know what? The weather's finally matching up with the calendar. Let me try to look for some stuff to do. Maybe, just maybe, you want to go to a Chicago Red Stars game, and maybe you want to use the Game Time app to go ahead and look up some tickets because you can use code CHGO for $20 off when you use a purchase on tickets, not just tickets to games, but they've got all kinds of cool stuff because you can go to concerts, and that's a thing that also happens in Chicago year round, really. But the summertime concerts are probably rank up there with some really good moments in the city. But buying your tickets to things shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, and comedy and theater near you, with killer deals on last minute tickets and the best price guarantee. You could stop stressing over the tickets and just start getting hyped for all the fun that you're gonna have. So take a look at the remaining games for Chicago Red Stars, and definitely grab some tickets and go support the players. That's probably a good idea. When the sun is out, that is the best time to go to SeatGeek.
True.
Maybe not the best time to play in the South Goal, but you know who didn't have problems in the South Goal was Nair.
That's right. That's
We're
right.
gonna
She
keep
made her
talking about it.
adjustments. Yeah.
Gotta
Yeah.
give a Nair her flowers, and you know why? Because it's been a tough 9 weeks
Yeah.
to date. And this is a player who we're talking about World Cup players. Mentioned Martha already.
Yep.
Um, there's a number of players on the Chicago Red Stars who are hoping to crack that final World Cup roster. And while Alyssa Nair has been the number one goalkeeper for the United States for quite some time, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon, despite Chicago's struggles. It's good for her to have a game like this, and even the game against Portland leading up into the World Cup. And yeah, man, breaking a record, which is pretty cool record, but also kind of like, gosh, you must have had some seasons. You
You know,
must have had some real seasons in NWSL.
I had the thought where I was like, I'm sure there's like a foundation here. There's a base of Boston Breakers to this record.
Yep.
It's like that's where it starts
Yep.
is with the first couple of years in Boston, and then just obviously it's taken her more time to break this record than it did Ashlyn Harris, because Ashlyn Harris was also on a number of teams that had some struggles. And so it's like the fact that it is this season to kind of put it over the top. And I do think Nair even like joked after the game. She was like, that's just for this season, right? And it's like it's a dubious distinction, but also one that I think Alyssa Nair obviously has been a very steady US number one for a number of years. But yeah, I mean, she's one of the goalkeeping mainstays of the league. And so having her hold this is, I think, not indicative of it's indicative of some struggles, like some poor seasons, but she's also played behind some great defenses, and I think that the both go hand in hand. And I think it's nice to, especially just like that, it was kind of all wrapped in a bow when they were celebrating her 150th cap too. Like it was just all kind of
a lot of milestones, man. So it's cool that we're in this place right now. We exist in this timeline in which a ton of players are reaching milestones with clubs that they've been with for a long time. So it was cool to sort of see them celebrate the all-time NWSL career save record, honoring her 150th cap, a large chunk of those having been with the Chicago Red Stars. But it's a cool thing to see in this league. I mean, not to bring another team onto this episode that isn't related to the Red Stars, but they just celebrated Ashley Sanchez's 50th appearance.
Yeah.
With Washington Spirit, and that blew me away, dude. Because I was like, oh, that's right. She's been playing for the Spirit a lot, even though she just got drafted a few years ago to the team. So it's wild to see like at the rate in which some players hit certain milestones and others, maybe hit there a little bit quicker. Obviously, you've got players who balance international duty and club duty as well. So maybe they take a little while to get there. But I think if you're the goalkeeper for both club and country, you tend to get there a little quicker maybe than some others. But yeah, huge congratulations all around. And that kind of stuff, again, like along with the win, really, really good for morale, I think, moving forward for this team. So maybe let's look ahead. A little bit, because again, if you're just joining us in right now, as we've been chatting a little bit for the last half hour, Claire and I do CHGO Red Stars podcast episodes about twice a month. So we definitely recap a lot of things and then look ahead towards some other things. But that's it for May. So Chicago can look back on this month of May and hopefully be like, goodbye, I never want to see you again.
Oh no, they've got one more.
Maybe they're like, we want to roll this into another dub. They've got a quick turnaround. There's a Challenge Cup match coming up, and it's coming up against Racing Louisville FC. You can catch it tomorrow. Literally, if you're watching this live, it's going to be on. It's going to take place Wednesday evening. Catch it on Burmo Plus. But look, we started the top of this episode talking about a really tough loss to Racing in the regular season. It was a 3-0 kind of lopsided scoreline. I believe they're gonna head back on the road to face them once more, unless I got that incorrect. Unless they're coming here.
It's a home game tomorrow.
No, it's a home game at Bridgeview. Well, let's see if this is gonna be an advantage for Chicago. I don't know. It's something about those midweek matches, dude, where it's just like I don't know if there's a real advantage for anybody at this point.
Yeah, I think it's more just who's healthy, like who's feeling okay. Yeah.
I'm curious if a Challenge Cup game is a game that Chicago wants to like test the return of some players. Like we mentioned Amanda Kowalski, she's not listed on these availability reports, at the moment, but we're not seeing her feature in regular season games. Is a midweek Challenge Cup game on a quick turnaround, a game where we finally see this.
Right. Start rotating people in.
Yeah. Addie McCain, someone who just recently came off of the availability report. Do we see her get some minutes in a game like this? I mean, talk about like literally just came up. I don't, if we do see her, I don't know if we get to see her for like a full 90 minutes in this one, but I think there's an opportunity to rotate if the Red Stars feel like they can. I think that's again another one of those struggles where they're just like, we just don't have the depth. We literally just don't have the bodies to go ahead and do something like, let's play around with rotation and Challenge Cup. Like, no, you're going to see starters who started on Saturday probably start in a game on Wednesday. So I would imagine Alyssa Nair gets another start in net in this one. I wouldn't be surprised to see, usual suspects along the back line, and Milazzo, Davidson, etc. But in terms of like recent form, got Racing coming off of a loss against North Carolina Courage, where they did pull one back kind of in a later stage of the game. So maybe that's the momentum that they're trying to build off of going into Challenge Cup. Again, they did suffer that nasty 3-0 scoreline, but there's enough footage out there, I think, of Racing at this point. I think Savannah DeMello is a player I think that we're both high on. I know we've talked about her and written about her in other spots. But I think when you have as much footage as you have out there right now, one player, like can you efficiently plan something to maybe isolate that player or kind of eliminate kind of the impact that they can have on a game? And can Chicago players go out there and execute that? I don't know. We will see. I don't know. I would love for Chicago to utilize Challenge Cup as that kind of mood booster versus the regular season. I don't believe that I don't believe that you can absolutely lose a season in your first half, but I do think you could try to set yourself up for success as you take a look towards that second half of the regular season. And Chicago at this point has had a really tough start to their first half of the regular season. So I'm kind of like at this point, for the things that are available for you to go out there and compete for, what is it? And I think Challenge Cup might be one of those things, but I don't know if the energy is there in terms of like what the coaching staff and the players are looking for. Again, you deal with professional. You look at pro athletes and they're like, I want everything. I want to win.
No, but it's a good point though, right? Like I think a lot of teams are just thinking like surviving the Challenge Cup group stage, and just if it works out, great. If it doesn't, fine. Yeah. But yeah, this is theoretically the opportunity for teams that are having a weirder start to their regular season, maybe just go all in on the cup. I just think, unfortunately, I don't think Chicago probably has the bandwidth in terms of their roster availability to be able to be that strategic about it. I do think it's just going to be about who can play. But yeah, I'm almost the opposite. I'm like, just play everybody young.
Yeah,
Put all the young ones out there and see what happens. Straight up,
try
like
try some
give
stuff.
your defense a night off. Like straight
Yeah,
just and see, they well actually no, that's, I guess their new defensive signing has been out. But yeah, do rotate every single position and get people who
why not?
didn't have time in and just see what happens.
Yeah, why not? I mean, after I think, then you've got after the Challenge Cup is another quick turnaround. They're going to have Angel City on the road. They're going to go to LA and face off against the Cali side on June 5th, and that's another team kind of going through some stuff, working some things out in terms of depth, available players who are available week to week, and then not available the next week. Who are we going to see in Angel City to make an impact and maybe give Chicago a hard day? And I think they could. I mean, look, I think we've been getting the teasers about Sydney LaRue. I think she was finally listed as questionable. If this is a player, I think who's able to get a healthy run out against Chicago, can probably cause some problems. I think for the back line, especially on the road. I mean, like, let's not act like what is it, BMO Stadium like isn't an intimidating place to pay. I mean, they've got a great environment every night. So I mean, you're already playing against the crowd. By the time you are kicking off in a stadium like that. So I'm very curious to see, like, on the quick turnaround from Challenge Cup, what the rotation is going to look like or be for Chicago. But not only the Red Sox, but like, who are they even going to go up against when it's Angel City? Because if for whatever reason you've got
Is Julie Ertz going to eat
available,
lunch?
yeah, if you got Julie Ertz available to go up against her longtime former club,
Yeah.
is Alyssa Thompson going to give you 90 minutes, and is she going to just completely exhaust whoever
Yeah.
is going to be tasked with trying to contain her, right? Like, they just look different when they not only have Julie Ertz in the mix, but also Alyssa Thompson. So it's one of those, I think, you can look at it as one of those games where you're just like, hey, like, we're going up against another, like, bottom half table team. Like, let's try to, like, task some things and iron out some tactics to try to, like, go ahead and execute those things. But I really don't know. That's a real toss up for me.
It could be an interesting game. Could be kind of wide open. I mean, I think ultimately, I think that the focus now actually has to be a lot less on the defense and a lot more on the attack. They've scored 2 goals in their last 5 games.
Yeah.
That I think that ultimately you can focus on the defensive assignments, but if you can't score, what are you giving? What chance are you giving yourself? So I think pushing Yuki forward, I think, was great. Pushing Kruger wide, I think, good ideas, and that sort of ended up with one chance, 1 goal. Great, let's build on that.
I feel like every time we do one of these, like, we think of like a new slogan for the season. And it's like that the one for this one, one chance, 1 goal.
1 chance, 1 goal. That's what they're gonna have to. It seems like, based on everything so far, it's gonna have to be really high efficiency. It just is. And so set yourself up for that, I guess.
Maybe, I mean, I mentioned, like, maybe having different perspectives on things that you can actually go out there and obtain and achieve. Is like, what are the common goals that, like, this team could strive for? And I'm throwing something out like a challenge cup. Like, maybe that's a thing that you could do. But again, I don't know at this point. I'm also very curious about, the next time you and I link up on one of these episodes, there's a possibility that the United States Women's National Team World Cup roster can drop. And what is that going to look like in general? What is it going to mean for the national team? But what will that mean for the Chicago Red Stars moving forward? Because even though there will be some break in play towards July, that doesn't mean the Challenge Cup is going on anywhere. That's going to be around. So there will be, like, fixtures and stuff that take place. And in terms of Chicago Red Stars players who are gunning for that, I think we're looking at, obviously, Alyssa Nair, who we've talked a lot about on this episode. Casey Kruger and Turner Davidson are the 2 other defenders as well. But Bianca St. George's is a player for Canada, I think, who's making a case for herself. But we've also got other international player in Julie Bianchi as well for Brazil. So it's like, what are those rosters going to look like when they drop, and how are they going to affect Chicago. So that'll be some interesting stuff for us to take a look at. I mean, and who knows? Like when we hop back on here together, we might not have those answers. Like maybe United States roster drops later, maybe Japan or maybe
I'd expect
Brazil's
Brazil.
or
Brazil
Canada.
drop. They're usually pretty quick. Theirs might be coming up soon. I would think. Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I would love to see it. I would love to see several. England's is coming out tomorrow. Like
Yeah.
we'll already know. But yeah, no, lots of cool stuff coming up along the way. Not just tied to Chicago Red Stars and to NWSL, but obviously like the World Cup and how that's going to affect things moving forward. So there again, like we had a ton of things to talk about on this episode. I'm sure the next time we all link up with you, we're going to have even more things to chat about. Listen, if you've enjoyed what we talk about here on the show, I just want to let you know one of the best ways to support the work is with a CHGO diehard membership. In case you are unaware, at ALLCITY, you get access to all sorts of podcasts. You get live shows every day on every single team. Looks like we had some folks coming in curious about this show. Welcome. Hopefully you come on back. But you get access to all kinds of stuff. So Chicago is a very sports saturated city, and CHGO has a lot of shows related to all of the teams in Chicago. There's sometimes you get access to post game shows. There's also premium written content. So if you're a member, you can go read all about the sports teams at allchgo.com. You also get access to merchandise. You get a free shirt when you become a member of CHGO. And of course, you also get access to the members only Discord, the CHGO Lounge. So if you really, really want to like pop off like with some takes, you probably just get a membership and then like just link up in the Discord, and that's where you can really pop them off. Honestly, that's where people like to get together and hang out. Or you can always come here if you want when Claire and I are doing these things live. But that's all we've got for everyone this week. Claire, it was good to see you, buddy.
Hell yeah, we're gonna come back to 3 straight Chicago Dubs.
We're here. It's hope. It's the hope that kills you, and
the first day of the rest of our lives.
And we're ready to die. No, just playing. Listen, everybody. Have a safe summer. We hope everyone had a good holiday weekend. We appreciate y'all as always. Make sure you tune on in. Follow us on CHGO, CHGO Red Stars. You could check out all the handles in the description below. But everyone, stay safe. Enjoy the beautiful weather. And Claire and I will be back with another CHGO episode in 2 weeks. So make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss out whenever we do go live. Okay? Peace out, everybody.